Hello, my name is John Denton. You might know me from the music reaction channel, John Denton.
Oh, fuck off.
And this is everything that I've listened to in April 2021. Let's go. To kick things off then, I've been spending some time in Forest Hills Drive, with J. Cole's Forest Hills Drive 2014 to be exact, reappreciating the artist that is J. Cole in anticipation of the off-season next week. First things first though, rest in peace Uncle Phil. This album really is the encapsulation of Cole as an artist. It's a beautifully poised, produced and articulated body of work, capturing the multiple parts of his personality. You've got the struggle, the arrogance, the humility, the wisdom and the honesty. It has moments of levity, no role models, and Wet Dreams of course is a slightly strange song, but hard-hitting bangers like A Tale of Two Cities, which is probably my favourite track on the record. And there's wistful, heartfelt melancholy in 03 Adolescence and January 28th. And Forest Hills Drive 2014 also marries its production with Cole's verses, creating an album of songs rather than just a collection of verses on beats. Obviously that's helped by Cole's own work producing the record and the lack of features. I think if I'd loved this record for 6 or 7 years, as many of you guys have, having heard it when it came out, it may be one of my all-time favourites. But even having heard it later in life, and later than a couple of Cole's albums in fact, it's still an undoubted classic.
Up the paper and they say
Next up is J. Cole again with Born Sinner. The reason I actually jumped on Forest Hills Drive wasn't the off-season announcement,
is back.
but it was the Patreon request to finally hear Born Sinner. If Forest Hills Drive is the encapsulation of Cole as an artist, as I said, this kind of feels like the genesis of his evolution, and oh yes, I do have bars. Don't fucking forget it. Here, Cole feels stuck between arrogance and toxicity typical for a recently successful rapper, but also the thoughtful, fallible soothsayer that we hear today. Tracks like She Knows do very little for me, to be honest, and that may be because I know where Cole ends up. I mean, at one point, he says, "This is Martin Luther King in the club, getting dubs."
Hats off for this dub, I love that one.
I mean, what the clinical fuck does that mean? There's also a song on here with a Kendrick Lamar feature, but it doesn't have a verse. Now I've checked, and that is actually illegal. Wait. Anyway, there's also magic on here. Crooked Smile with TLC, Letting Us Down, the title track, Miss America from the bonus songs. It's a bit all over the place production-wise, a bit all over the place tone-wise, despite the religious themes sort of running through it. But like I say, if this is Cole still finding himself, then it's interesting to hear him finding that voice, but not interesting enough that I'll be returning that often.
I used to read them in
Up next then is Brockhampton with Roadrunner, reaction on the channel, and oh man, I needed this one. Energy, enthusiasm and courage define much of this record, but the whole thing is also dripping in heartache and pain. The performance from Joba throughout is seriously tough to listen to, but it's absolutely stunning at the same time. To be honest, it's a privilege to be on the other side of the speakers when he's sharing his darkest moments with us. The sort of violence and shock that exude from his voice and kind of into us when he's talking about his father's suicide. I mean, it's kind of astonishing at times. Yeah, this is still a record of hope, man, and often of fun. In tracks like Watch the Occasion, the boys experiment with sort of grunge hop that sounds amazing, and the bounce comes back on Don't Shoot Up the Party, while we disappear into psychedelic trap in the hypnotic bankroll with ASAP's Rocky and Ferg. It's weird to call this album enjoyable given much of the subject matter, but if this is Brockhampton's penultimate ride, then once again they've absolutely delivered. Alright, back home for this next one, AJ Tracey with Flu Game, reaction on the channel. One word to describe this album: confidence. Ladbroke Grove's AJ Tracey has quietly become actually perhaps the biggest rapper in the UK scene by tactically hopping through genres to pull in a wide and broad fan base, hoovering up Brit Awards and nominations and #1s as he goes, all the while demonstrating an immaculate selection of flows that seem to fit any beat, and this is definitely a showcase for that. Flu Game's obviously a reference to the infamous Michael Jordan performance.
Me being compared to him, I took offense to that.
And exudes that kind of last dance energy throughout the record. It's almost impossible to listen to this album and not feel your own chest puff out, even if you're like a middle-aged dad from the south coast of England, whoever that might be.
Fuck off.
AJ jumps between American-style rap on Coup Coach, drill with Digger D on a punchy Bringing It Back, you got garage on West 10, pop with a retro sample on Dinner Guest, and then grimy, not grime, just grimy, UK rap on the album's best tracks like Eurostep and Cherry Blossom. Why there's nothing here that truly blows your mind like a Dave bar that you solve 18 months after first hearing it. This is a ballsy sophomoric effort from AJ. Actually, I don't know why we say sophomoric in English. There's literally not a word here. Anyway, this album really showcases its variety. In fact, I'd actually love to hear the guy take on some other genres. Grunge? Maybe? He got a voice for it. EDM? Let's go. Anyway, solid stuff from AJ.
I've been in the streets, the way I trap is elite. Half my niggas got the heat.
Okay, up next it is Young Thug and YSL with Slime Language 2, and whew, boy, this was a long one. Yeah, I get that it's a label album and it's there to showcase a lot of artists, but man, it can be rough to go through from start to finish. And honestly, despite the length and all the artists involved, the record is just really forgettable, man. It's so samey. And it's lacking in Young Thug too. Who, honestly, is just a calibre above a lot of these artists, if we're being honest. Still, shout out to his brother Unfunk, who delivers on Real. A strong shake of the head to Skepta for his behaviour on an aeroplane on Rockstar. Don't want to think about that. And kudos to me for liking Superstar with Future, even though everyone else hated it. So well done, John. In truth, though, the record has its best moments early. You got Drake in hyper arrogance mode on Solid. Travis Scott delivering 2 killer features in 2 weeks. Here on Diamonds Dancing, the other being Baby Keem on Do-Rag Activity. Check out the reaction on the channel right now. And everybody involved, Rowdy Rebel, etc. on Came and Saw. It's alright.
Slip, slide, trying to provide for me.
Alright, this next one, we're moving a slightly different direction. That's what's going to be fun on these videos. I checked out a new Royal Blood album called Typhoons, a Royal Blood English 2-piece band from near where I'm from, actually, well, near where I was born anyway. In tightening up the sound and drawing from other genres and styles on this record, Typhoons, it actually loses some of the roughness that made their debut so thrilling back in the day. But it also kind of lacks the punch of some of the disco and the 80s power rock that it seeks to incorporate. Still, it's good to hear these boys branching out. There's some gospel in there, some Death from Above EMD crunch flirtation in there, and definitely a lot of Arctic Monkeys, or latter day Arctic Monkeys, not super latter day, that weird latest album of theirs, you know what I mean. But it does feel like the whole record could be bullied into a corner by a random Queens of the Stone Age B-side. It just doesn't quite have that fire. Still, tracks like Boilermaker and Who Needs Friends have a confident strut that sounds expensive, sounds established, like they're a band that know their lane. And it will be interesting to hear how this record sounds live. Next up is one of my favourite bands of all time. It's Ohms from Deftones, and I went back to this record after seeing excellent, I would recommend checking this out, the excellent video to the song Ceremony. Man, how the hell is this band? Look, their first record came out in 1995, they're all nearly 50. And here they are delivering another gorgeous, eerie soundscape of shoegaze brutalism. The same music they've always made, yet somehow their most immediate and exciting work since White Pony, which came out 20 fucking years ago, make it make sense. In tracks like Genesis and Ceremony, you can almost hear the strings being brushed, like the guitars are being played with a bow like a cello, the fucking texture. And while the album loses a little bit of personality in the midsection, disappearing into a trance of crushed guitars and that signature Abe Cunningham snare, puncturing the atmosphere to keep you alert, it rounds out with this glorious digital waterfall that is the title track, Ohms. What a fucking band! Keeping it heavy on this next one, well, kind of. It's Architects for Those That Wish to Exist, an album that I should have probably reacted to on the channel. Never mind. When a heavy band takes steps into electronica and melody, often, I was going to say something clever, but often it's shit. Often it's shit, isn't it? I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Architects, though, have always had the ability to kind of soar into clean melody as an escape from their typically claustrophobic breakdowns and savagely scream lyrics. But here they just push that a little bit further. Tracks like Dead Butterflies and Animals are probably the softest we've heard the band. And bands still reeling, remember, from the death of founding member Tom Searle, but now pushing on into new territories. But unlike many heavy bands who do soften, Architects have made sure to keep that violence on tracks like Discourse is Dead and An Ordinary Extinction, while also drafting in some features, including a thumper with Parkway Drive's Winston McCall and a dreamlike number with Biffy Clyro's Simon Neil. I think we can all agree that Fantano got this wrong. Still love you though. Right, moving on then, and it's Morray with Street Sermons, man. I wanted to love this. I wanted to love this, man, so much. Morray is so talented, such a good voice, such amazing delivery, such earnestness to his words, yet so much charisma. And he makes the absolute most out of these instrumentals, exploring almost every possible melody he could push them into, but they're just too samey, man. If you've heard Quicksand, you've heard all the instrumentals on this record. We listened on stream, follow up on Twitch by the way, we listened to a lot of music on Twitch, link down in the description. And by the halfway point I was crying out for just one song to ditch the trap hi-hats and let some of the instrumentals breathe. Or one song just to operate at a different tempo. Still though, despite this, there are bangers here. Quicksand, of course, we know this, but also Switched Up, Kingdom. In fact, none of the songs are bad individually, but as a body of work, it doesn't have the instrumentation to keep up with this guy's outrageous talent. Which, to be honest, if we're gonna have deficiencies in a project, make it this way around. Morray could sound amazing singing the phone book, although who the fuck has a phone book in 2021? But get this guy in a room with Metro Boomin or Wheezy or the fucking Black Keys. Let him go and he will excel. I eagerly look forward to his next project. After the Morray stream, I was craving something with a little more substance. Now maybe it wasn't the substance of 2 severed pigs' heads, but that's the cover they chose and there's nothing I can do about it. Other than not show it on this video, or most of the stream where I did this first. Again, check out the Twitch. They'll probably end up doing this album a disservice to that cover, because what we have here is a masterful trip into the surreal, a dark, hypnotic journey into the weird and possibly corrupted minds of Billy Woods and Elucid. 2 artists I'd barely heard before, but who are both outstanding, combined, and fuck that, interwoven with the Alchemist once again in god tier form. It's hard to pick up individual tracks because it all slides into one another like some sort of alien parasite that merges with your neurons. Yes, I have been playing Returnal. The musicianship Alchemist shows here to create these purgatorial soundscapes is absolutely outrageous. This guy is operating at a completely different level, and Arm and Hammer are just a perfect accompaniment. The result is just a grisly trek into the abyss. I fucking love it. Well, I couldn't stop the Alchemist journey there. He dropped a new EP this week called This Thing of Ours, featuring Earl Sweatshirt, Pink Seafood, Boldy, James Navy Blue and more. And while it's very short and sweet, it somehow manages to capture a simulacra of a New York summer in a way that's almost impossible to pin down. The opening track has the audacity to sample The Long and Winding Road by the Beatles, but make it sound like the title music from some long lost Harlem set sitcom. The Alchemist is a fucking deity.